So hello and welcome to the Voice of Florida Architecture, where we share the news, happenings, and celebrations from around our state. I'm Rhonda Hammond, AIA, your AIA Florida 2024 president, and I'm excited to be here today. We're beginning our series of conversations with our vice presidents. We launched this series to introduce our VPs to the membership and beyond, and to allow each of them to share their vision for the profession through their committee and share what is currently going on within the state. Today, we have the privilege to speak with our Vice President of Communications, Monty Stark, AIA. Welcome, Monty, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good deal. So you're a board member, a leader at the local component, an architect and firm owner, excuse me. Before we get into communications, share the story of your journey to architecture with us.
Well, if you live long enough, your stories can have lots of chapters to them, and you may think mine does. I've been doing this since 1985 as a registered architect, and I'll give a shout out to Lourdes and a few other Mississippi State Bulldogs in our association here in Florida. I graduated from Mississippi State University in '77, went to Dallas, interned in Dallas for a number of years, got licensed out there, and moved to Florida in 2000. So it's quite a variety of experiences and places. And in between all of that, while I was in school, I had the opportunity to go work at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill in Portland, Oregon for a summer. That was a blast. That was a blast. And loved every minute of it. Saw Michael Graves' big birdhouse, City Hall under construction. It was hated then. So, as a young architect, I loved watching it come up. But got to see lots of things and work on a variety of projects. I worked in Dallas on a lot of technical stuff, did some headquarters for Nokia telephone at the time when they were really hot in the country, and did some work with some technology companies in graphics, doing pre-press and things like that, and really straddled the threshold of analog to digital out there, and loved every minute of it. It was wonderful. In 2000, went through some personal changes, and professional change was needed, and chose Tallahassee to live, and moved here in 2000, and the rest is history. So
there you go. Well, we're really glad you made it to Florida, but I'm personally glad you made it to Tallahassee.
Yeah. As am I. Tallahassee is a small component, but it's a great place to live and raise a family. It's wonderful, really is. Yeah.
So our communications committee is vital on many levels throughout the association. And there was a moment in your speech. Yes. Because, one of the benefits of being president, you get to choose who leads the four different committees. And there was a moment in your speech, because I had not made up my mind, and you were a candidate for vice president at our 2023 convention in Orlando. And and I'm paraphrasing here, but you were very clear about that our message needs to be clear, concise, consistent, and shared. And it's just the way you said it. And that was the moment I thought, he needs to be our chair of communications, because he has a vision. So my question to you is, what do you think our message should be, and why do you think communications is important?
Oh, I remember that moment. I don't remember the exact words.
I know, that's why I paraphrased.
Yeah, and I must say, doing this and stepping in, when you do run for VP, you really don't know what you're going to be asked to do. And having been a regional director for a while and saw all that was going on, it really didn't matter. I knew I just wanted to stay on the board and serve in any way I could. So it's my pleasure to chair the communications committee this year, not knowing what your theme might be, but attending Legislative Day a number of times here in Tallahassee, and I would encourage everyone who can to do that. Attending a number of conventions over the years, and I would encourage everyone who can to do that. It just became apparent to me that there are lots of people in the state of Florida that don't understand what architects do. And that's everything from clients to community leaders to state level leaders in our legislature. And many of them impact how we do what we do, when we do it, and how often we do it. And rules about how we use our seals and our licenses, and whether we're going to continue to be monitored by DBPR, depending on the temperature of the legislature on a year-to-year basis, and what CCNA means to them and how we fit into all of that. There's just a lot of things that impact what we do and how we do it. And the more people understand what we do and how we do it, the better understanding they will have of what we can do for them, and what value we can bring to their processes and to their communities. So I think the message, and I feel like I'm not being terribly, what were the words, direct, clear, consistent, and all that sort of thing, because it's a soup. It really is a soup of issues that we need to be very familiar with. And the message depends on, are we talking to our members? Are we talking to students and rising professionals taking exams? Are we talking to members that have gray hair or no hair? Are we talking to business owners? Are we talking to educators? Are we talking to people that are architects in Florida that we want to implore that they be a member, and here's why you should join? Or are we talking to clients? So the message varies slightly, but we need to understand what we can bring to a process and a project and bring value to that. And it's at all levels. It's in planning, it's in zoning, it's in codes, it's in design. And design, I'm going to say this right, and you can quote me on this, okay? We'll put this up in a big graphic. Design is a verb. Design is not a noun. Design is a process. And that process of design involves not just us, but hundreds, if not thousands of people associated with our projects, from manufacturers to fabricators, to installers, to specifiers, to maintenance people that maintain our projects. They all need to understand what our project is that we're doing and why. And our community leaders need to understand the same. So if they can understand the value that we can bring to their projects, their process, their communities, their planning, the problem will almost start to get solved. And then it'll change itself a little bit. We can have more conversation.
There you go. There you go. So throughout my affiliation with AIA Florida, we've discussed, as you were just talking about, communicating the value of architects and what we bring to the project. And I noticed over time that we were adept at sharing this message with each other and agreeing upon it, but we weren't near as successful sharing it with the public and the building officials and clients and things like that who really need to understand it. So gearing up for my year as president, one of the things I wanted to work on is that how we get that message out. And being old school, my first thought was, newspaper, but I don't know if you recall how unsuccessful that was when we tried to do that in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
So the next thing that came about, again, who are we putting this message out to, and how are people getting their news today? And what came to mind was podcast. We need to do a podcast. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought that's just perfect. And so I called you up, and you were packing to get ready to go on vacation. I don't know if you remember that. And when I shared this idea with you, I was afraid, I was not certain the response, but I should have known, because you didn't hesitate a moment. It was like, that's a wonderful idea. And then you laid it out for me. And like by the time the phone call ended, you had our program laid out, you had a list of topics, and this is what we were going to do.
Yeah.
So I was really certain that you were where you needed to be. And it's been exciting, and you've been a part of that from day one. So it's exciting. So what is your vision for the podcast? And how do you see it fulfilling our purpose of being the voice of Florida architects?
I hope this whole podcast ability will become second nature to us. I mean, right now we're doing this. If I can be this transparent, we're doing this via Zoom and recording it. So we're not in a highfalutin studio with a bunch of sound mics everywhere and, you know, directors and producers and that sort of thing. Becky and Chrissy are going to handle all of that after this editing of this.
Yes.
But it should be, we have the technology now for it to be fairly nimble and fairly flexible. So as you and I talked, I want it to grow and become a regular communication to at least our membership and to the people in the communities around us that we want to share our concerns and challenges and opportunities and messages with as well. And then some of the other groups that I talked about, we can work into that as well over time. But as we discussed, we have an association of 13 components, and sitting on the board and going to Friday Facts and component calls, there's a lot going on in our state in the world of architecture in our components. And this gives us a chance to do that. If we only did a podcast of what every component was doing, that would be 13 of them across a year. Yep. So add on to that convention or conference, however you want to call it, add on to that advocacy with legislative day and all those various things. And there's a lot to talk about: elections and some of our political leaders that might want to share with us some of their thoughts and would have some dialogue with us. We can invite them to it as well. Add on top of that, how many schools of architecture are there in the state? You know, we've got a great dialogue going with them now. We should pull them into this conversation as well. The one thing that I'm hoping where this can go, and I don't quite know how it's going to be, we haven't figured out how to do a call-in line yet, I don't think. I really want it to be a conversation as much as it can. And if nothing else, these podcasts right now, I hope, will get out to our membership and start some conversation among them. And I hope they will reach back to us with more ideas and more subject matter and clarifications or updates on what we're talking about. So much of what we're talking about changes so fast that there's a continual need to update and have more dialogue about it as new information comes forward. Just you know, in advocacy, bills change and proposals change at the state level, not to even to mention local levels. You know, we ought to have conversation about that as well. And then resiliency and professional development. There's so much happening right now that just needs to be in the forefront, you know, and in the air so that we're all aware of it. I did a number of years ago, I did a blog, and it had a really long name. It was like Design Information Technology or something. I don't know what it was, but it was a weekly blog, and it was a lot of fun. And I had some followers, but it was one way. They didn't really have a way to respond back to me very well. And I hope we figure out how our membership and how our communities can respond back to us, and we can have some dialogue in that way going maybe forward. That's
the next evolution.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
So tell us about the work of the communications committee itself, and how is it made up? What does it do?
You know, there are things when you get into them, you really don't know what you're getting into. Okay. And here's what I've found. The communication committee, I'll quote, "You've got mail." The communications committee is a well-oiled machine, my friend. I really want to give kudos to our staff. They do a great deal of this. And to the folks that have been on the communications committee for a while. I was looking on our board docs or our online thing today, and I think I counted like 18 people on the committee. I think there's more than that. We might need to get that updated, but it's past presidents, it's directors, it's other board members, it's people that haven't been on the board, It's just an amazing group of a variety of people around the state that regularly meet to discuss communications. And there are some programs that the Communications Committee has been responsible for some time. The design awards and the issuance of all those rules. We're going to be talking about some of that at our board meeting coming up later this week. People's choice, and this is where the staff really steps in, Chrissy and Becky and all the others, with hot topics and all the communications and our website and our emails that go out. And it's just amazing. It's continual what's going on. The thing that I'm excited about, that I've seen some of this year, and it's probably because I'm just chairing it and it's always been going on, but it's great to see. For a while there were, and I'm talking years ago, there were silos that people did their subject of their responsibility in, and they would come back and report. And we're breaking down those silos a little bit, and it's becoming more, I call it cross-pollination. We're hearing more directly what advocacy is doing and professional development and membership and those sorts of things. And I hope that's rolling into our communications more fluidly, perhaps, than it was. So I'm excited about that. My goal for the Communications Committee, and while there's a lot of people on it, I don't think we've done this yet, and Chrissy may want to correct me on it, but my goal would be to get at least one person from every component on the Communications Committee. I want every component represented on this committee. There's some specialty stuff about it. The editorial staff for the magazine is technically under the Communications Committee. They are a group of people that have been doing this for years and enjoy it, and it is unrelenting. It is a cycle of information and communication that is probably unforgiving in its deadlines and that sort of thing. And they've been marvelous in doing that. So we have coordinating conversations and meetings with the editorial staff as well as that goes on. So, and now the podcast, so it's a variety of things. If someone wants to be active in AIA Florida, the Communications Committee is a great place to jump in and do that.
Now, you mentioned something earlier that there were people on it that were not on the board. So any member can be on any of our committees. Is that not true?
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely. Yes. And I would encourage someone to do that and have it at the local level. No one's stepped up, I don't think, in a great way, but I'm encouraging some others to do that. So I don't want anyone to think you have to be on the board to serve on these committees. That is not true at all. I mean, there are people that used to be on the board and they've turned out and that sort of thing, and they're still on these committees, and that's a wonderful thing. The continuity of all of that is great. So if you want to get your toe in the water and get to feel the pulse of what's going on AIA Florida, join a committee. And they're regular meetings. Some are long, some are not. It just depends on what you need to deal with at the time. And it's great to be able to make a difference. You can make a difference. If you want to change something, join a committee. If you want to improve something, if you want to bring something new, join a committee, and you'll get a seat at the table and you will be heard. I can assure our members of that.
I think that's exciting, that if you just want to serve, you don't necessarily have to be on the board. You can just join a committee, and you have a choice of the one that you would like to, what interests you, what your passion may be.
Yes. We have a strategic board meeting coming up, and that's when we'll really start, I think, planning and doing some forecasting for next year as well. So we really ought to make a call to arms for people that want to be on committees for next year. That would be a great time to do it. As far as I'm concerned, you can join at any time. Don't think, well, the gate closed, I can't attend. That is not the case.
So, Monty Stark, your service to AIA and AIA Florida is extensive. Why did you join AIA, and why do you think it's important?
I have experienced AIA in a variety of ways. And I told you part of my story was working in Texas. I worked in a firm in Dallas that was just great for a young architect coming up, and the Dallas component was strong, and they welcomed all who would want to be there and that sort of thing. And I absolutely loved it. One of the principals in our firm out there at the time was president for a few of those years and that sort of thing. So I was really encouraged to be a member and be active out there. And it was wonderful getting to know some other people outside my firm besides my classmates that went out there. You know, I met other architects from around the country that landed in Dallas at the time and loved every minute of it. When I came to Tallahassee, I'm not going to name names, but when I came to Tallahassee, I landed in some firms that were not very active in AIA. And I guess to our shame, that's not uncommon. Okay. So I took the lead from my employer and put my head down and went to work and met people in Tallahassee, but not necessarily at the state level. And then CEUs really kicked in and needed to do some continuing education, and started my own firm. And Pat and I went to some state conferences and things like that, in addition to leading AIA Tallahassee, and just met a resource, just a deep, rich pool of experience and encouragement at the conferences, and made some really wonderful friends and colleagues, you know, from around the state. And I don't quite know how to describe this. You've asked me to be direct, clear, consistent, and all of that. I can't really describe it. The influence of AIA Florida is rich and profound and subtle at the same time. You discover resources, you discover information, you discover trends, and it's nothing that's secret, but it's nothing that's just out there overwhelming everyone. If you come to the conference in particular, and you come to some of the regular meetings we have, legislative day and things like that, you start to see what's happening, and it's rich and it's profound and it makes a difference. It really does. It's not just, when is my schematic design set of drawings due? When's my DD set due? When do I have to sign and seal this? How overdue are my submittals? It's, why are we doing these things, and how can we affect how we can do them better in the future? And it's trends, and it's software, and it's processes, and it's professional use of your license, and it's important. And now, having been doing this since 1985, I'm really realizing, and I did a graphic a few years ago about hurricanes and political cycles and all these things that we can expect to encounter. It was an animation. I think you saw it. It was this spaghetti bowl of stuff when it was all done, but it was like 50 years long. And I showed it to a few of my younger colleagues and told them, look, you're going to see the end of this graph. I'm not. And I was looked at like, well, how old are you? And I said, well, look at the color of my hair, okay? So, you know, I might have 10 or 15 or 20 years left in me. I don't know, but I don't have 50. And we can see 50 years out, you know, of what needs to be done. And I now have seen the ability to hand forward, I guess. I'll not say hand backward, hand forward experience and counsel and guidance, you know, where I can. No one wants to hear you talk about drawing on linen or working with Croy machines or, you know, hand lettering or Leroy anything, you know. But it's really exciting to talk about technology. It's really exciting to talk about climate change in ways that will make a difference to our children and our grandchildren and those coming after us. So I find AIA Florida a great avenue to do that as well.
Thank you again, Monty. Thank you for your service to AIA Florida and the profession at large. And thank you most importantly for being here sharing today.
You're very welcome. This was wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity.
So I hope our listeners enjoyed getting to know Monty as much as I have, and more importantly, the work our communications committee provides for the association. I welcome you back for the next episode where we will continue our conversations with the vice presidents from the state board. Our next conversation will be with our Vice President of Professional Development, Mr. Adam Gale. Thank you for listening.